Welcome to Mondays with Coach Rice. It's a brand new week, the sun's shining bright. A chance to cast your net, step into the light. Life's full of challenges, it's a winding stream. But with Coach Rice, you'll find your dream.
Good morning and happy Monday to you. I am here. Welcome to Casting the Net with Coach Rice, where we really sit down and dialogue about how to help you. I am your host, Coach Rice, your professional certified life and health coach and trained mental health counselor. And today I have my special guest, Patricia Ahern. She is a mental fitness self-love coach, creative writer, storyteller, and podcaster. In this powerful episode, we're going to dialogue about moving from self-sabotage to self-love. And she is an expert in her field, and I can't wait to introduce you to her. So, Patricia, tell us, where are you from? And how did you end up taking a journey in the field of self-sabotage to self-love?
Hi, Martha. Great to see you. And thank you very much for inviting me onto your podcast first. How did I get into coaching? How did I go from self-sabotage to self-love? It has been quite the journey. And I must say that what started it all off was burnout. And burnout is not just tired it's exhaustion really, but it's also losing yourself under the rubble of limiting beliefs. So yes. People call them limiting beliefs, limiting assumptions. You might have heard of gremlins, inner demons, inner critic voices. I'm a mental fitness PQ coach, and we call them saboteurs. And it's this self-sabotaging process. So really, to start with, what is sabotage? It's when we destroy, damage, obstruct something or someone. So self-sabotage is when we obstruct or damage or destroy something for ourselves. And we can obstruct our goals, we can damage our well-being and our relationships and our performance, all sorts of things. And so for me, all of that led to burnout, not once, but twice. So when something happens to you the first time, you kind of don't understand, and you then fix the external world so you get better. But when it happens to you the second time, you're like, hold on a minute, like, is there something more going on here? And then it's that journey inside to try and understand, why has this happened again? But it's that curious mind in a way I was ready to look into what was going on in my life, why these patterns of behavior. I didn't call them self-sabotage years ago. I just knew that there was a system in me that was a repetitive negative reinforcement, even though I was predominantly like a positive person with a good attitude. But then I realized that was from a younger age, learning to keep the bright side out.
Right. And so, yeah, self-sabotage is so common to so many people in their lives, because they do actually hinder their personal growth. And yeah, it's like you do self-destruct, right?
We certainly can self-destruct, because in all of us, what I've been learning in the last years of coaching is the complexity of the human body, the brain, the human experience, this human existence, the universe, the whole thing. When we understand there's a complexity to it, but also the oxymoron is there's a simplicity to living life. We can make small steps and simple steps to feed what we want more of. But what happens is, if we get stuck in a negative reinforcement loop, we are inadvertently, unwittingly feeding what we don't want. You know, it's like I say, I want, because I had weight issues all my life. I was 16 years old when I went to a first weight watching club. There's loads of them in the UK, I'm sure in the
Yes.
US as well.
Yes.
And yeah, it's a whole load. I think the first one was Unislim. I was 16 years old and I went, and up until maybe 8 years ago, I was going to some kind of slimming club on and off.
Right.
So it really, again, actually, I'll tell you a little story that I remembered. This was maybe in my late 20s. I was in a club, and usually they weigh you in, and then you go in and you have a chat. And this lady talking said, how many calories in a chip, we'll say, in a fry, right? And I think if I remember correctly, it was 11 calories per chip. But she was talking and said, you know, I think this is how I remember her saying it. You know, if you really loved yourself, you wouldn't stuff your face with chips or something. Maybe she didn't say it in that way. Maybe I
Right.
heard it that way. And because I think that was probably me, my inner critic going, yeah, stuffing your face or whatever. That was my term of phrase. I
Right.
don't think it was hers. But I remember that. And it's not until I went on my self-love journey that these things from the past kind of creep up on you and go, oh, she touched on something. The reason I remember it. So I remember actually being in the room because she touched something in me that knew, but I didn't know yet, but something in me knew that I was self-sabotaging in a way, because I believe now from the work I've done is that you wouldn't sabotage someone you loved, you truly loved, right? No matter what, if you truly loved them and had that, you wouldn't really sabotage them. And my thinking is now is that we wouldn't self-sabotage, and even you could put neglect, we wouldn't self-neglect if we truly loved ourselves. So I think that slimming lady speaker was onto something way back then. I mean, we're talking, that's like 20 years ago. She was onto something when nobody was talking about loving yourself or self-love that I knew anyway in my realm where I was 20 years ago. Certainly self-love was selfish. Self-love was something that was,
Yeah, we're taught that, right?
oh, absolutely.
That we're being selfish and our egos are huge when we self-love. And that's not true. That's actually fallacy.
Absolutely. I want to tell you another story as well about my lovely mum. She lives in Ireland. She's 88, and bless her, she said it's an understanding now when leading by example is a beautiful way to lead, because my mum and myself have always got on well, but we would come, you know, we'd clash heads every now and then, two strong ladies, you know, and so she's been on a journey herself in the last few years with me, and I've loved every minute of it, and our bond has got so much stronger. And when I go home to Ireland, because I live in London, UK, and it's getting harder and harder to leave, you know, that time when I leave.
Right.
When all through my younger years, I would go home and I'd leave without a thought. But my mum says to me, Patricia, I don't know if I like this self-love thing. I mean, it's not good to be talking about yourself and thinking about yourself all the time. And the old me would have went into self-sabotage going, oh my God, I thought she got it. But I sat there with a smile on my face and said, this is going to be a great conversation. Let's have a conversation. Let's talk about this. Thank you for bringing that up. And then I said, you know, when you really, truly love yourself, you don't feel the need to talk about yourself. You don't need to prove yourself. You don't,
Right.
like, there is no needs from this self-sabotage, this like insecurity, this fear within. And God knows I lived in fear all my life. Everything I'd done was out of fear. But I love Nelson Mandela's quote. So many inspirational quotes helped me over my time. Oh my God, the one that says, may your choices reflect your hopes, not your fears. That on repeat in my mind helped me so much when I'm planning something, doing something. Am I doing it out of fear, or am I doing it out of love and hope? And really, it just helps to pause in the moment. And I believe, talking to my mom, it's the same journey, that out of fear. And when you start realizing that there is another way, and my mom has embraced the journey, and I'm so proud of her. And she's an inspiration at 88, because there's people, oh goodness, I have clients in 30s, in 40s, in 60s who say, oh, I left it too late, I'm too old now. And I'm like, that is a limiting belief. And I see my mom in her 80s embracing this inside out journey, this journey of self-discovery, and it is her journey. I have no attachment to her results. That's me laying down that, for me, kind of going, okay, let's talk about things. Let's stay open. And so it's one of my greatest achievements in my coaching practice, my bond with my mom, that we can now sit there, rather than sometimes you'd be afraid to say something, or she'd say something, and then we'd start bickering at each other. There's a lot of conflicts in relationships, even relationships that are great or good, those times. So it has really been great. And the self-sabotage to self-love journey takes time. And as I say to people as well, just enjoy it. Do what you can every day, a little thing every day, and you're on your way. So yeah, and that's what I say to my mom, do what you can until you know better, and when you know better, do better. That's Maya Angelou's phrase. I introduced Maya
I
Angelou
love her
video.
phrase. When you know better, do better. I love that, because it's true. You don't know what you don't know. And it's interesting how self-sabotage is so attached to fear. So let me ask you a question. You got people on weight loss journeys, right, that self-sabotage all the time. What do you think is behind the fear?
There's so many fears, Martha, and I think it's very individual what the fear is. For me, I had this, like, that bright side out, that I grew up in an environment where I didn't feel seen or heard or understood. And yes, I grew up in a time in Ireland where children were to be seen and not heard anyway. That's part of this conditioning. And then I realized I'm a hypersensitive, highly sensitive. I don't know what spectrum of that I'm on, but I look back, and the work of, like, Elaine Aron, the research psychologist who's done so much work on hypersensitivity, it gives you goosebumps, because it makes you realize that it helps you make sense of your life. This sensitive part of you, that empathic part of you, and it just helps. And I think that fear, that need for acceptance, going out into the world, and just this need for love, wanting to be loved and feeling unlovable, and then the fear of rejection. When you do find somebody externally or something externally that loves you, then you've got a fear of, they will reject me at some point. And again, it's a loop. Now, for me and my journey with weight loss, I became friends with my fridge. I have a poetic story called The Fridge. I became an emotional eater. I ate my feelings.
I did too, so I can relate.
I had an emptiness inside that I fed with food. And I think Freud talked about that, about eating. So there is a fear, you're right. But also a negative reinforcement loop that has a fear underneath it. But I think for every individual, it can be different. We can relate to each other and the fears. But what it is a satiating, a satisfying with food or with the substance that kicks off the dopamine in your brain. There is a biological a chemistry function, is process going on when we have something. But that loop of eating, wanting to align with losing weight, then having a good week, and then having one day where you don't do well and you self-sabotage again, then those voices go, oh, there you go again.
Yeah.
You can't do anything. You're useless. And people speak to themselves so badly. And I did. I was my own.
Yes, I did too. Yes.
And then you either drop it because that voice says you're not good enough, it's not going to work, or you rise above it in that time and you keep going. But there's always the fear that you will fail. And I know that
Yes.
I lost weight. There was times, and I went to my clubs and I did everything and I exercised, and then I felt great. And then I went out and I ate and I drank and I did all the bad things. And 2 months later, it was all back on again. I mean,
I did too. I did the same thing. That loop.
that loop, that vicious
Yeah, that
loop.
vicious cycle. And you're right that you have to deal with the limited beliefs, because the way we speak to ourselves can be so bad. Is we would never speak to someone else we love like that. And so I always like think about, I say to myself, why do I want to be with Martha? Myself. It's that I call it Martha number 2, which is the person in the mirror. And I say, why do you want to be with her? And I talk about it from a standpoint of like what currently, not the persona that I want to be, but currently what's happening, like why do I want to be with her? And I just love her. And I just know, but I also know that it's certain things that I would like to change in her. It gives you a different perspective of yourself. But I'm not mean. When I find myself being mean to myself, I will write that down. And I call it dismantling those thoughts. Because those thoughts that's the thing that haunts me. So I have to say, okay, especially with weight loss, it really happens there. Like you're fat, you're never gonna lose, that type of thing. If I had those type of thoughts, I would dismantle that, because it's not true. But would I tell that person in the mirror, Martha number 2, would I be that mean to her? I kind of externalize her so I can relate to myself better and show myself the love that it deserves.
Absolutely, beautifully said. But I'll tell you that the bullying you mentioned, the voices you mentioned, are a form of bullying. And really, I was working with somebody some time ago, a few months ago, and when she shared with me the voices, what the voices were saying inside, it hit me hard, because sometimes when you are so far removed from those, they're still there. They're still there in me, but I don't give them any energy.
Right. They
But
still
you
there. Yeah.
remember the impact they had on you. So as a coach, when you're working with people and they share it, as you say, you relate to the old me being like that. And in a way, it saddens me. But again, it's that protecting energy. So I'm helping someone rather than, going there myself, back there myself.
Right.
And it made me, thinking about it after, I thought, oh my God, if we heard people in front of us and one of them was speaking like that to the other person, we would want to intervene and go,
yes,
what are you saying that for? That is so rude. That is so horrible. That is not nice. But yet this is going on inside of us where nobody hears it. And where is it coming from? And the other thing, I love the way you say Martha in the mirror, Martha number 2, but mental fitness. And there's a lot of work around, and I've done a lot of work around. Just let me say, actually, before I say that mental fitness and what I do is not so much changing self. It's a reconnection with self.
yes.
Love is a reconnection with self. And what who I've reconnected with is my 8-year-old self. And I live between now my 8-year-old self, who's fun and playful, and my wise elder self, who's in the future. And both of them I can turn to at any time. So I even have my 8-year-old self up in my
Oh,
office
that's
wall.
so cool.
I can look up, and I also have my 12-year-old self, interestingly enough. And I can look at that and I can go, okay, and straight away she gives me that energy. And
Yes.
the beautiful thing is, the beautiful thing, as an adult, if I'm having a bad day and self-love is hard to find, or the voices are a bit stronger than usual, I can always go back to her, because Martha, I will always love her unconditionally. I will always be able to find that energy of love for her. So reconnecting with your younger self, the mirror work is fantastic. And I have done mirror work with clients, and there's times where you might be introducing it and somebody might say, I'm not ready yet, because that's how far, that's how disconnected we can get from ourselves.
Right. Exactly.
That we can look in the mirror and look in our eyes and look at ourselves and say nice things. However, when people are ready, they're ready, and not before. But connecting with your younger self, that beautiful young Martha, at whatever age, it could be 4, 5, 6, 7, whatever age you choose, she'll bring you, she can bring you so much, because we look at our children. I don't have any children, but children of the world, my nieces and nephews.
Right.
We look at children, we go, oh, look, they're so gorgeous, and they say things, and they're so full of
Yes.
life, and they're open, and they're curious, and they're creative. And we have so much love oozing out of us for that. Oh, when we can get to that, yeah, there's one of them inside all of us.
Yes, it is. It is. And it's so interesting, because that's where a lot of the way I relate to the Lord is through that inner, through that 8-year-old Martha. Because it's like, I need you, Lord. It has a sense of humility wrapped in it, and love and openness, because kids are very open. And so it does have that openness when I relate to him in that way. That's why he said, come like a child. That's a powerful statement, because when we come as adult, we like, I got this. But when we come as a child, it's like, help me. You come in this way of like that. So, but I like how you have that relationship with your, like you got your pictures up and you're able to look at that, because but what I do with the work, when it comes to like the mirror, first I have to deal with the negative thoughts before I take them to the mirror anyway, because I have to dismantle those, because it's important. If you see yourself a certain way, the mirror is just going to exacerbate it. But if I take you through let's dismantle your thoughts, because a lot of those are not, 90% of them are not true. But we have to prove that they're not, because some of them could be actually true. And it could be a way to, it's a way to reframe it, because, some people can say, I'm selfish, and you like, how do you prove that? And some people are, but it could be due to mental health issues, because some people with mental health issues they they can be very childlike in behavior. It's all about me. It's all about me. But it's not because they're bad people. It's just because they have to focus on their mental health and manage it. And it's very scary for them. And so you have that childlike behavior, but don't know how to deal with it in your adult life. And so you do have, that type of thing. So let me ask you a question. What type of stuff do you do for self-love to manage your self-love, basically?
From a basic fundamental point of view, and this is what I help my clients, because I think it's all about building a foundation. If you're building a house, if you have a strong foundation, we're so quick to go out there. We want to do big leaps and big things, and we want big things and then see results. And what's happening is we're taking one step forward and two steps back kind of a thing. So
Mm.
cultivating patience is a big thing, because I had programs, and you mentioned about the child and said, we create, a lot of the self-sabotaging, as you said, is not true, but we create patterns of behavior and thinking to help us stay safe, protected, and survive growing up, because that is our very instinct to do. So depending on how we grew up, and it's not about growing up like people say, oh, I had a great upbringing or I had a bad upbringing. It's not even about good and bad. It's about perceptions.
Yes.
We perceive what is going on. And I come from a lot of siblings, and, you know, we didn't see everything the same growing up. You know, like I said, I didn't feel seen, heard, and understood. But I know now that I was highly sensitive and I maybe needed more, but nobody knew about it back then. So again, it's even with my relationship with my mom. It's like, you did the best you could. I appreciate that now. I respect you. I appreciate you. But nobody knew. And when you don't know, you don't know. So it is moving away from that and cultivating, recognizing and being aware of that need in us to stay safe, protected, and survive. It's an instinct. It's part of our beautifully, miraculously designed survival system.
Yes.
So this is that loop and that self-sabotage. When we're building self-love, we're building, remember. Now, I don't mind admitting, when I started my coaching in 2018, I believe, looking back, that I spent too much time on what I called the opposite to strengths, which was weaknesses. I don't use that word anymore. And I do work a lot with language and the energy around language you use. And I think I spent too much time talking and looking at it. Now you're learning all the time, and it's all about results. You want to get results. You want to help your clients. It's about building something. We're building something here. We're building a foundation first. So cultivating patience, being aware of those voices, those thoughts, and that need to stay safe and protected. But that pause, the power of the pause. Viktor Frankl is the Holocaust survivor who wrote the book Man's Search for Meaning. I would recommend it to anyone. It's a beautiful book with a lot of, because I've been searching all my life, and it is that man's search for meaning. And he said between every event and stimulus and response, there's a pause, there's a space, there's a gap. Mental fitness is in that gap. It's there that we pause and what do I need right now? Like what will help me right now? It's not even what do I need. We're trying to shift away from those negative needs in a way. What would help me right now? What would serve me? What's hindering me? What's holding me back? We're navigating between both of those, because I say to clients, I want you to become the guru of your own life. I want to help facilitate you realizing what self-sabotage programs are in there. And it's not even about understanding where they come from half the time. It's just understanding and aware that they're there. And then taking the power of the pause, learning to take the power of the pause. 3 years ago, I was working with this girl. The victim program was very strong in her, and she was trying to go on diets and lose weight and trying to get her life together. But I remember a few months later, she said, you know, one of the biggest things that I've learned in our time together and what's helped me the most is something I never knew before that. It was the power of the pause. And it's not about the choice you make. The power is in the choosing.
Yes.
That's the beauty of it.
That's the beauty of it.
I can choose to get angry. It's not about not, like, something happens, stimulus, event, I get angry. It's not about getting angry. It's about coming off the autopilot of anger. It's about going, okay, because all the negative emotions are valid. They're all valid. They all have a reason to be in our human experience, our human existence. However, if we stay in them for too long and we're angry all the time, we make ourselves ill. And there's enough
Yes.
researchers out there and brilliant, beautiful people doing a huge amount of research that is helping us to realize the damage they're doing to our biological system. And when you're in this realm and you read their stuff and research their stuff, you know that I was sabotaging myself for a long time. And the end result was gut issues. I have dealt with gut issues for the last 20 years. And even when I look back, when everything fell apart, I can pinpoint it to what else was going on in my life.
Right.
So it's autoimmune. And I didn't even realize that the gut issues, the digestive issues I had are an autoimmune. But also the gut food was part of it, acidic food, not looking after myself. Like I said, it's not only self-sabotage, it's self-neglect. We're neglecting the care of this body we have, which is beautiful, and
Yes.
the creator, whatever you believe there's a
Right.
God, creator, evolution, whatever. We're created beautifully. We actually have a unique fingerprint. I mean, there's something that tells us all apart.
No, we're perfect right now.
Imperfectly perfect or perfectly
Yes.
imperfect, whichever way you want to look at it. That is the beauty of it. And even you mentioned the Lord, God, and I grew up Catholic in Ireland. I grew up, but I was never really very religious, but I'm very spiritual and I love the teachings of these great books. And I'm not an expert by any means, but that line where we were made in his own image and likeness.
Yes.
So when you go back to your younger self and that openness of the child and the creativity and curiosity, that's what the Lord or the Creator, God, would want for us, Jesus or whatever prophet. I said to my mum recently, actually, she was saying, sometimes I wake up in the middle of the night and I can't sleep. And I said, what be going on? She goes, oh, well, my own stuff. And I said, you know what? You've lived a long time. You're here. We're all proud of you. We're so happy you're still here. She's 89 in June. I'm looking forward to a little party. But she was saying, I'm not 90. What are you doing a party? And I was like, we're celebrating.
Right.
I
Because
said,
that's major.
absolutely. And I said, when you lie in bed and you can't sleep, that's the time to talk to God. Like she talks about God and she talks. I say, because you can bet your bottom dollar that he would not, or she, or whoever, the God would not want you to be lying there worrying about anything, and would none of us to be. Let it go and give it, and everything will be fine, and then we were going through some positive affirmations she could say if it happens. But the fact that she's taken it on board, like my mom
That's
would
amazing.
10
That's a
years ago,
beautiful relationship building too. That's like an honor and privilege
it's
that
an
everybody don't get every day, right? And that's why I say when I say we perfect, I don't mean we perfect in behavior. We perfect the way we were created, but behavior is what we get to modify and make choices and deal with our mental and physical health. But I also like how you call it mental fitness. It reminds me of like physical fitness, how you go to you have to build that foundation in your physical fitness, but it's still also very much connected to the mental. So I like how you use mental fitness in your business, because it really does need a foundation to move to self-love, to learn how to have a relationship with yourself.
Yes. And it's based on positive intelligence. And that's founded by Shirzad Chamine in the US. I think, is he in San Francisco? I'm not 100% certain. But so it's all based on positive intelligence, which is a fantastic system, because when I grew up, I said I wasn't brainy. That was a thing in Ireland. If you weren't academically
Oh,
intelligent,
okay. Well, we say
intelligent,
we're not smart enough. Yeah.
yes. Well, we say I'm not brainy. And then I found the Super Brain book by Deepak Chopra and Rudolf E. Tenzi, and it completely transformed my thinking from a fundamental brain. For the first time in my life, I read that book. I read it again. It was so powerful. I got it on Audible. I read it and listened to it at the same time. I'm like, this is phenomenal stuff here. How could I have disrespected my beautiful brain all my life just because I wasn't as academically good, or I wasn't intellectually intelligent as my peers. But again, comparison is the thief of contentment, Martha. We
Yes, it is.
compare all
Yes,
the
it
time.
is. Oh, don't do that.
Oh, don't do that. I say to people, don't do that. You are
Don't
your
do that.
own journey. You're on this journey and you're the driver. You're in the driving seat and your body is going with you. And if you care for that and if you love yourself, the beautiful journey will be different. And I think that book, Super Brain, it was around the time I found coaching, before around that time, and I can't remember exactly who recommended it or what happened, but it completely, the phrase, the neurons that wire together, fire together, that there's neuroplasticity, that because I grew up thinking this is me, there's nothing I can do about it, this is how I was designed. And that's the sad
Right.
part, because we actually tell ourselves, now when you talk about 90% is not true, those things that weren't true, but we didn't know what we didn't know. And even the neuroscience
Right.
is young in its whole research. But what we're finding out is, as I say, going back to the complexity, I help people, like my own story, I learned to appreciate, respect, and love my brain, my being, myself, my body. Yes, as you said, there's things I might not be too fussed about, kind of, but it's a very fundamental. It's not about looking at my body like I used to and go, oh, I'd be looking at all the things I wanted to change and it's bad. Now I just look at it and go, thank you. Thank you for coming along with me on this journey
I
and
love it.
keep going. Let's keep going together. It's now, yeah,
I
it's
love that. I love that. So what advice, one advice, I know you give many, but one advice that you can give to the audience to leave
a
them
little
with?
tip. I don't really tend to give advice.
Yeah.
A
What tip?
little
What
tips. Um, I'm an expert in my own story, in my own life, but I would say positive affirmations, use writing. Writing, creative writing has really helped me. And I've developed this podcast which tells my story about intelligence. It's actually episode 9 is called The Bee's Knees, and it's my mom's story. So listen
Okay.
out for that. This is our relationship that I mentioned with you. I would say write down positive affirmations for yourself. You can say them or think them, but it's even better to say them out loud, you know, like in your head saying, I love myself, or I'm good enough, or I'm worthy is one thing. But when we say them out loud and then we hear them back, that's another process.
Yes.
When we write them down and then we say them back, and it's International Women's Day tomorrow. I am, with all my social media, I'm encouraging women especially, but men too. It's just because it's International Women's Day, to write a love note to yourself,
I love that.
to Martha, from Martha, and empowering words, uplifting words, loving words, caring words. And I would say do that once a week. Do that, make a date
Yes.
with yourself and have your little notebook, especially for your own love letters, depending on what's going on. And every week, at some point, say, and put your name and then from you, and write what uplifts you. Write what you're grateful for. Write what you love about yourself. But let it be organic. Let it flow. Let the pen and paper, or if you're typing or if you're putting it on your phone and notes, don't necessarily think about it before. Just make the date with yourself and see what transpires.
Oh, I like that.
Feed the positive, because what you feed grows. And when you're ready to hear, you'll hear. When you're ready to see, you'll see. It's nobody's job to convince anyone. It's sharing of information, which you're doing here, casting the net, which I love, getting different voices out there, different stories. I really appreciate that. because the coaching world is phenomenal and it has transformed my life, my thinking, my mindset.
Yes.
I have met so many inspirational people, but for tomorrow, I shout out to all the inspirational women coaches out there making such a difference and such impacts with such caring. But what I say is, look after yourself, because you cannot pour from an empty cup. And yeah.
Thank you so much, Patricia. You have really dropped some nuggets, and I love what you're doing because people need you so much. If you're struggling with limited beliefs, self-sabotage, and need to delve into and a deep dive into self-love, because there's nothing wrong with that. It starts with that. It starts with relationship with self, loving yourself, so the overflow can go on to other people. And so reach out to Patricia. Patricia, tell us, how can they reach out to you, number one, and actually what is the name of your podcast so we can go on and follow and subscribe?
My business is PA Coaching. It's Positive Autonomy Coaching. It is pacoaching.co.uk, on the website hello@pacoaching.co.uk if you have any questions or if you want to reach out. The podcast is on Apple, Spotify, all the usual platforms, and it is Mindful Poetic Stories. You can find me, you'll see my face on the thumbnail, as they say. And yeah, I'm on Facebook, I'm on Instagram. You'll find me on social media. Reach out if you fancy a 1-hour discovery session with me. We talk about life, and if you want to hear more and discuss how mental fitness can help you, positive intelligence, and how I can help you in your journey from self-sabotage to self-love.
Thank you so much, Patricia. I will put all the links in the video. And I just thank you so much for coming on today. It has been an honor to speak with you and meet you. It's so wonderful. We have so much in common. So thank you so much. And I just want to say to the audience, if you found that this video was helpful, please do subscribe and share, because I have so many wonderful people that I have met that come on my show on a regular basis, and I just want to share what they have. Please, I do not want you to suffer in silence or isolate, because you have so many people out here that can to walk with you on your journey. So please do share this video, and thank you so much for listening. We are signing off.
It's your time to shine. Your journey to chart. Coach Rice wisdom will heal every heart. So join us now. Let's make life suffice. Welcome to Mondays with Coach Rice.